Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Illinois Green Party series with your hosts, David Rich and Calvin Tomasco. Calvin, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm excited to learn about the Illinois 10th District tonight. This is going to be exciting.
This is fun. This is going to be very exciting. So we have as a special guest tonight, Adam Broad. Adam Broad is recognized by the Illinois Green Party as the candidate for the, what's the matter?
No, just watching the hand signs. I like
I thought you were correcting me. Recognized by the Illinois Green Party as a candidate for the 10th Congressional District, Adam is glad to be organizing with people who will stand up to corporate polluters and speak out against the people who sell us out to those same corporations. Adam, welcome to the show. How are you?
It's an honor to be here with some like-minded progressives.
That's exactly right. It doesn't get much more like-minded than this show, this particular episode. So I mean, all of them are a bit like-minded, but this is going to be like full-blown. So why don't we go ahead and start off with I like to start with a person's history, a little bit at least, and how you got involved in the Green Party in the first place.
I was poached.
Oh,
good.
And I was very poachable when I was poached.
Who poached you?
Anna.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anna Shivobeam? Nice. How did she know? How did you two know each other?
I'm not sure if she knew about me. I think there were some local Greens that I'd organized with, because I organized across partisan lines. Even as a Democrat, I worked across partisan lines with independents and Republicans and Greens and anybody that's down for the cause. And there were a few people saying, run as a Green, run as a Green. And I thought, well, I don't want to run as a Green. I will have less chance of winning as a Green. But then it really came down to
conscience.
It did.
Morality.
It had to do with conscience. It had to do with running with people who want to run with me. Absolutely. It had to do with, the Democrats, they basically gave up on democracy to save democracy. A strange little thing they did in 2020, where incumbents with tremendous advantage were protected by the DCCC. And I know a lot of regular folks don't know what the DCCC is. That's the arm of the Democratic Party that promotes Democratic candidates for the House of Representatives. And they didn't want any more AOCs getting elected or progressives, or they want their corporate people to stay in place, so they didn't want them challenged, and they did not allow me, loyal Democrat that I was. They didn't want me to have a fair election, and they didn't want an honest, open debate on the issues. They'd rather gaslight people with the millions of dollars of corporate money they get to win elections, but they're really not doing a great job.
Yeah, no, my understanding is in the 2000s
building the party, or they seem like they're determined to implode, and that's without me being a Green or any help on my part.
It's definitely rigged from within. My understanding is that in the 2016 election, leading up to it, that Bernie Sanders was actually filling a lot more halls than Hillary Clinton was, and anything else, and the establishment within the Democratic Party just wasn't going to have somebody as radical as he was. So they sort of, however they did at the DCCC, I guess, probably just armed him out, muscled him out a bit.
But it was a number of things. And over years, I guess there are a number of times I wish there was somewhere I could go to, another party, because there was a lot of ways I've been dissatisfied with the party establishment over the years, especially their propensity to fall for the same dirty tricks over and over.
Right.
It's going back, especially to 2000 in Florida, where you had a number of voters disenfranchised by dirty tricks, and the Dems seem to be brainwashed by the nonsensical corporate media talking about hanging chads rather than tens of thousands of people being systematically purged from the voter rolls. And then flash forward to 2016, and the same thing that was done in Duval County, Florida, was done on a regional basis. The Chris Kobach voter purge that helped elect Donald Trump, and the Democrats were hapless about, hey, how we fell for the same trick the Republicans used on us 16 years ago. How are we to know? Oh, well, Greg Palast was writing about it, for years. For years, it's been talked about. It was a slow train coming, just like it is for the next election. We see the Republicans lining things up to deprive people of their voting rights. And the Democrats send emails to people saying the Republicans are trying to steal voting rights, tip jar, but then they suck at doing anything about it.
That is very true.
Oh, we suck at our jobs, tip jar.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, we have some people commenting here. Ethan Winnett says he's skipping Jimmy Dore live and Bernie Sanders live to see this. Adam's a hero. Thanks, Anna. And then Ginny Lester said she did good poaching. So you have a fan base.
I love poaching myself. So, I mean, it was good karma for me as a long time poacher. And I always encourage other organizers to poach for me. As an Obama organizer in Louisville, I filled a lot of GOTV slots for a lot of organizers because I didn't wait for them to tell me, start recruiting for GOT. I knew the minute I arrived, start getting people lined up for Election Day. So speaking of which, everybody, please circle November 8th, 2022 on your calendar. Circle it now. It's a Tuesday. We'll need all hands on deck to make sure we get an honest election here in Illinois 10.
All right, that's a perfect segue. So besides being a Green Party member, you're also the Illinois Green Party candidate for the 10th District of Illinois. Why don't you go ahead and talk about that? What got you interested in doing something like that?
Funny thing is, Our Revolution, I was in Our Revolution. I was one of the co-founders of Our Revolution Lake County. So I was actually one of the co-founders of Our Illinois Revolution. So it came out of the Bernie Sanders campaign. And we had all the reason in the world to challenge Brad. And we wanted my wife to be the candidate, actually, Colleen Levine, who was then organizing Our Revolution Buffalo Grove. And I agreed that, in our district, she would be a lot more likable and electable because she's a doctor and she's been treating patients in Lake County for decades. And she's known and loved and respected by everybody pretty much. I mean, and most of my friends like her more than me, and I get it. And except one jealous ex-girlfriend, that's about the only one that would take my side on that. But we thought, she was electable, and we thought, a single issue Medicare for all. She knows healthcare up and down, but she get cancer, and it's the kind of breast cancer that's related to ETO pollution. And I was in the Stop ETO movement before that, but it made it very personal that my wife was going through this cancer from this toxic gas that's coming out of Waukegan. And it was in Waukegan and Gurnee, and now we know about the one in Willowbrook. And when the Republicans did nothing about that. They ignored this kind of toxic waste completely. The EPA under Trump, the Illinois EPA under Ronner did nothing. And then we got J.B. Pritzker, he got elected, and he shut down the one in Willowbrook, but they left the one up here going. And in effect, they eliminated the competition for it. And then they passed some legislation. The Democrats were very proud of the toughest anti-ETO legislation that had ever been done, because the Republicans never passed any legislation. And this stuff allows the polluters to self-report, according to Stop ETO, the local group. And I would love to work with them. And you know what? As a Democrat, you would have no credibility working with them because of the way they've been lied to and strung along by the local party. And it's a shame. And I said, even while I was running for Congress last time, I draw the line, my party loyalty, I draw the line at bankrupting and killing people. And so anyway, like I said, my wife had cancer, and they were stuck with me. And Colleen wanted it to happen, and she had seen, the movie about AOC, and she'd only been a volunteer on the Bernie Sanders campaign in the previous election, and she suddenly became a campaign manager. After one cycle as a volunteer, she went right up to the top as a campaign manager. And I got to tell you, she worked her tail off. And I wasn't out there as much as I should have been because I was taking care of my wife, making her breakfast, keeping her company. She was going through a real hard time and chemo, was really hard to run a campaign, with just a few people with clipboards. And but we thought, Brad might sign off on a stupid war, so it would be good to have an alternative on the ballot. Brad is being dishonest on the healthcare debate, and it would be good for people to know the facts about Medicare for all and to have an honest debate about it. But, it didn't work out as far as me getting on the ballot. We had enough signatures thanks to Colleen's hard work, and I pitched in, and we had other people pitching in, but we had a few hundred signatures thrown off. We were 50 short. They moved up our hearing to December 23rd, I think it was, and they gave us 3 days, including Christmas Eve and Christmas, to come up with the affidavits to overturn their decision. So machine politics, the stuff I've been seeing the Democratic Party do in the city all my life, and shame on me for being part of a party that does stuff like that routinely. And I knew that was part of the drill. I knew I needed double my signatures to get on the ballot. It shouldn't be that way. I had enough legal signatures, but I was held up to a different standard than like Brad Schneider would be, for example, with his signatures.
How many do you have to get for this run?
There's some there's a discrepancy between what I thought we needed and what Anna says I need. And so we have to figure that out. And I have a guy that's looking into that for me.
It went down last year. The Libertarian Party and the Green Party of Illinois both sued the state to get the numbers down for third-party ballot access. They went down to 10%. So let's say it was 12,000 for this district. It was 1,200 last year. And I was actually the Libertarian candidate for this district last year, and I still couldn't even get 1,200. It was almost impossible. So, yeah.
I thought it was a real shame. And I'm a voting rights guy. I mean, I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution when I joined the Marine Corps. I took the same oath when I was elected to public service, and it's in my heart. I would want to uphold and defend the Constitution, regardless if I took the oath or not. But I was really outraged when I heard about when Rauner was running for governor about the Libertarian.
Cash Jackson?
Yeah, I heard the Libertarians were actually being physically assaulted by Rauner's goons in the city.
Oh, that I don't know.
And nobody cared. And I was disgusted by it. And it wasn't a disqualifier. And then, and Illinois is a bellwether state, so it shouldn't have been a surprise to see Trump get elected when you had a governor elected with, what he had going on with the nursing home,
right,
the lawsuits, the wrongful death lawsuits.
Right.
I mean, for a guy to be elected governor with that kind of stuff hanging on him, and he just used his money, and the Democratic machine sat on its hands. There were ways that the Democratic Party in Chicago was complicit in Rauner getting elected, just like there are ways the Democratic Party was complicit in Trump getting elected. And it's a story that we haven't talked about much in the the corporate media. They haven't talked about the connections, financial connections between him and his lawyers and certain people, like Ed Burke, for example, just throwing out a name that's been tied to, it's like people are like, This is like, Adam, why are you with the Greens? Don't you know you're helping the, Trump win? I'm like, no, you're confusing me with Joe Biden and J.B. Pritzker.
Anyway, Calvin, you got any questions?
Yeah, I think that goes right into this idea of like corruption and special interests, and we're looking at Citizens United, where you can endlessly and anonymously donate and receive money through these super PACs who are supposedly by law they're separate, but there's no way to regulate that. I think Colbert back in the day proved that outright by having a super PAC of his own and not colluding with his lawyer brother who worked it on screen. Oh, maybe I'm talking to a different group. You guys don't know about that. But speaking about corruption, Adam, have you sworn off corporate contributions and super PAC money?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Because you're part of the Green Party and it's actually built into the platform. What say you to your competitor?
What's a funny thing? I'll tell you what I said to his face. I said, Brad, I heard that when you first started out, you were a money out of politics guy. And Brad said to me, well, I'm still a money out of politics guy. And I said, yeah, Brad, but you take the money. And then he walked away. So
yeah,
it's like, that's it. Yeah, Brad, but you take the money. And this was before, and I had a good relationship with Brad. He helped me get elected when I ran for trustee. I mean, with the whole blue wave here in Lake County, it was one big tent then. And also Brad was still being a progressive. He hadn't completely disowned the progressive wing. He was still selling himself off as progressive. People would still tell me with a straight face, well, Brad's progressive. And now he's writing blogs, saying, radical left progressives need to go, they're going to drive the party off the cliff. Well, that would be you, Brad, about me. But it goes back to the ETO thing again. Well, when you talk about money, I mean, there's a story that, that because that's a Democratic donor who gave to Hillary Clinton, who gave to Barack Obama, that's okay for them to pour cancerous, toxic ETO gas into the air. And I'm just appalled by it. And not just because of my wife's breast cancer, because I was appalled by it before. And I know there's Democrats that are appalled by it, and I know there's Republicans that are appalled by it. But the leadership that gets paid off, they don't, they're business as usual.
Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to read the comments here on the side. Ethan, when Brad told me and Joe to our faces that he had divested from his stock, so we had to find something else to get him on. Does that sound like something you would know about?
I'll have something to get him on. Back to the healthcare issue.
All right.
Brad is he has appropriated the language of the progressives. I remember when he was in his progressive stage. I don't know how often he's going to go around saying healthcare is a human right, but if he says healthcare is a human right, then supports a system where people don't have access to it, or it's killing people or bankrupting people. Apparently, it's not much of a right, or a right he's not going to fight for. He says people shouldn't have to be bankrupted by healthcare costs. Yet he supports a system that bankrupts people. When they don't have that in other countries, where you get sick and then you're ruined. And this is also very personal. I've gone through this and my family. My grandfather, he worked hard his whole life. He had a small business, worked 6 days a week. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, he wanted to take care of her. I mean, it's just like all that money he worked for his whole life, that was going for pharma and medical. It's like the old company store scam that they had for the workers, where all our money, everything we work for our whole life, goes to pharma and the insurance people. And then after, when you get sick, you lose your job, you lose your insurance. They've had all that money you've been pouring into the system while you're young and healthy, and then you get kicked into a public system anyway, because it's all you have. And even in tatters with its threadbare funding, it's still better than the private system.
Yeah.
What is the function? What value does for-profit health insurance give to healthcare? But it is good for wealth care. It helps CEOs and shareholders, and it's healthcare dollars to CEO and shareholder wealth, not healthcare dollars for healthcare. And that's why we don't have everybody in and everybody out, and for the corrupt, broken system to work. You got to let a few people die off so you're not paying for their care. In fact, these large bonuses these CEOs get, up to $90 million and what do you get a $90 million bonus for? Finding creative ways to deny coverage to the people that paid into it. They are incentivized to deny care to the people paying for it.
And then they donate to politicians' campaigns. So I pulled up Brad Schneider's OpenSecrets.org page, and you can see his top contributors. He definitely hasn't sworn off corporate money. You can see corporations donating right here. The industries that he gets it the most from are retired, then real estate, pro-Israel, securities and investment, lawyers and law firms. And then one of his top contributors is Paragon Biosciences. And that'll be in the link in the description below this video later on. So folks, check that out. It's a really cool site, Open Secrets. They're tracking the money. And you can see clearly that he takes pharma money and then votes to where pharma benefits. It's an investment by the companies.
Now, you said Ethan had been on chat. Ethan was the one that first
right there.
told me that Brad Schneider's family, his wife's family, makes a lot of money from the healthcare system. Now, I never knew that. I never said, I mean, to me, he was a fellow Democrat, and I just accepted him at face value. And it's a big town. I always knew Brad was more conservative than me. I didn't know that the Blue Dogs or Third Way was secretly funded by Koch Industries at the time. I learned that later. But Ethan made a big issue about it, and he would call Brad out at meetings. And Brad accused me of spreading dirt on his wife's family because he had melded me and Ethan together as one entity. So the things that Ethan said, he was blaming me for it. I was like, what are you talking about? Ethan's one of those Green Party crazies. I'm a good, loyal Democrat. I didn't say anything about your wife, Brad. And he wouldn't have it. He just kept accusing me. And this is to my face. And I was like, I never said anything about your wife. But yeah, maybe now you can conflate me and Ethan. We're both Green Party crazies that don't want to bankrupt and kill people with corporate healthcare. That's insane, right?
Brad Schneider is the 35th richest person in the Congress.
Yeah, I know.
And it's because of his wife's money. As far as I know, Brad Schneider actually spent time in a kibbutz out in Israel for a while, and he came back out into politics and married into a wealthy family. And how you go from living in communal, a non-property type situation to becoming a bajillionaire and going for Congress. I don't know. I'd like to have him on the show and ask him.
I would like to be in a debate and ask him a few things, mostly about what value does insurance bring to healthcare. That's the question I want to answer. What value does for-profit healthcare insurance give to healthcare? And we're talking about, government. The government is famous for big bureaucracy. We got nothing on the insurance industry in government. I mean, I said this before at a debate I was in. I said, they joke that an elephant is a mouse built to government specifications. Well, if the government bureaucracy is an elephant, what do you call this thing? This complex web of networks. And then you get denied. And that's why Barack Obama got beat up by the Republicans when he said you could keep your doctor. It's like, no. The insurance company decides if you keep your doctor or not. That could be out of network. For that matter, your doctor can be in network, but they might code it wrong, and you still got to jump through hoops. You may have an important test for your cancer that needs to get done, but you're going to get caught in a corporate bureaucracy, and you can't just vote them out. Well, you have to vote out most of the people in office to vote them out. Get all the people who don't take money. We have to get all the people that are taking the money out, and that's a good start. For campaign finance reform is just stop voting for those people and vote them all out. Whether you're in the Green Party, at the Democratic Party, or whatever party you're in, don't vote for the people that take the money and vote the interests of those people.
Yeah, and maybe do a little bit of what Ethan was doing, show up at their meetings and call them out.
I have some, I wish I would have, maybe come over sooner, but I'm a little slow sometimes.
We're glad you did, though.
I'm glad I did. I feel like a real organizer again. I feel like my heart is in it, and I feel like I have my heart back. It was just so freaking depressing. I really started in 2004 because I was in Florida because I wanted to be there after 2000, and it was just what I ran into there. More just really confronting the institutional racism and the white apathy, I think, which was evident in 2000. Like you said, give credit to the Republicans. They have a fabricated election theft, and they're storming the halls of Congress. The Democrats have a real election theft, and it's like, whatever. I mean, give someone at least some credit for their courage of their convictions as opposed to simply not caring. I'm a strange guy that way. I respect people I completely disagree with who care more than I respect people who just don't care. That's just me. I respect it.
Yeah, no, there's something to be said about devotion and your passion and doing things, being active instead of just sitting there. Yeah. I mean, there are certain people I disagree with, and I don't like them because I disagree with them, but very few. I disagree with Nazis. I'm not
People,
gonna
I
hang out
mean,
with
I'm
one.
trying to read Brad. Sorry, I'm talking. I'm like really. I just wasn't talking today. It was
It's okay.
I got up at 5 in the morning and had my long day. Jumped around. I was like, I got to be up for this. I got to pound the coffee today to be on this. And it's like, oh, I'm in trouble now. I'm a memo to self: don't go off the rails. And I'm just like,
well, let's focus more on your campaign, Calvin, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Just we talk about go down a checklist, if you will, of topics that you want to emphasize, issues you want to emphasize. Medicare for all is obviously one. The environment is obviously going to be another. What about ranked choice voting, third party electoral ballot access? Is that going to be a priority? Or go ahead, just pick Medicare for all. What are you going to do as let's say you win the election, or when you're promoting the campaign? Let's start there.
No, we want to educate people first of all.
Okay,
we want to reach people because they're being lied to, and the bad actors in our our two-faced sham, our electoral system, they're being fed misinformation, and just even to get the truth out there. And I got to tell you, I mean, I'm a big advocate for Medicare for all, single payer, but it's funny, we're out of the 19 wealthiest countries. We are ranked, 19, and the Canadians, I think they're 18. So their system is significantly better. I've had some people don't buy it, but it's like, well, if you want to talk about the flaws in the Canadian system, why don't we start looking at the things they're doing in the other 17 countries above them, at providing health care? I mean, because to me, it should be common defense. That's
my understanding is that Canada's healthcare system ranks number 1.
1?
Yes. My latest research says that Canada ranks number 1 of the top 10. And the other ones
on the metrics, I think.
Okay, well, sure, of course.
I will say that it would be the most easy to transition into, because all we would need to do is improve and expand Medicare, and it could be like that. Right. And we would get rid of all that bureaucratic overhead. The problem is the jobs, and I think there's even provisions in the Medicare for All. I know there's provisions in the Medicare for All Act for retraining those people who are employed and maybe even employing them in the government. But what you're getting rid of are those $90 million bonuses for incentivizing the denial of care. You're eliminating a ton of bureaucracy. That's the whole thing about the single payer system. That's what it means, because you just have that single payer. You're not in this complex web of conflicting bureaucracies, and it's an instant way to get the cost of pharma down. And there's another thing to look into. And when you're talking about educating people, I don't think people realize that the taxpayers are developing these drugs. They're getting sold back to them. They're being price gouged when they're being sold back to them. And there's a lot of scams built into our system where the taxpayers are developing or securing something, and then it gets, we already paid for it, but then it's being sold back to us again. It's like, it's already ours. We paid for it.
Yeah.
But there's some rule like, no, you can't get anything from your government without these people being allowed to get richer off it. I don't see where that's in the Constitution. Any service provided by the government to the people, there needs to be a corporate middleman in there taking 9 out of every $10 and putting it in their pockets, because it's also a matter of control that gives them, it translates into political power and complete domination. And it's become a threat to our very republic. It's not just an economic burden. It is a threat to our ability to do the thing which I've always said was one of the most sacred things about our country, is the ability to overthrow our government nonviolently through the ballot box, to say this leader has to go. We may lose that ability to throw a guy out of office, or a gal, or anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the genius of our system. And it's not that the founding fathers were should be deified or like gods or
no, but that was a pretty clever part. No, there's no doubt.
That was the thing.
The peaceful transition of power every couple of years was definitely a good idea. Yeah, there's some definitely parts of the Constitution that are worthwhile. Some of it is not, but some of it is.
Absolutely. I mean, no, there was some original sin there. But
that's why the 3/5 clause.
Progressive.
Right. Real quick, Ethan is asking, what would you introduce? Would you introduce a bill to bring all the troops home?
all the troops home from?
I'm guessing globally, our military troops around the world. I use the word all.
I do want to end the forever wars. I do want to end war for profit. I'm not a pacifist, but I would say case by case. You know, I mean, it would be real clever for me just to say, "Oh, of course," and it's going to be peace and love all the time. Because I mean, I could tell you.
I mean, we have
I can tell you this though, and part of my change, and part of what another thing I'm appalled with is, you know, the Afghanistan papers. And I really would have thought the Democratic Party had more chops at foreign policy than that. I mean, if you'd have asked me, and when I worked for Barack Obama in 2008, I would have not. You know, there's a lot of people who thought he was an empty suit, and I worked against him twice before I worked for him. I campaigned against him in 2000 and 2004, but I still thought wholeheartedly that he could be a good president, even as a DSAer. I was hopeful, you know, that I would not have seen how bad things were in Afghanistan, that it was like such a farce, and that we spent 20 years pouring money into just a boondoggle. I mean, I knew Iraq was a boondoggle, and I opposed Iraq. But, you know, when Obama said, well, you know, they said, we're going to take, you know, we took our eye off the ball. The terrorists are in Afghanistan, and we're going to go fight the Taliban and get bin Laden. And I was like, all for that. You know, I supported it. And now I feel I have blood on my hands from it. And I'm disgusted. And it seems like the political establishment just wants to sweep it under the rug. And they want to talk about the sloppy withdrawal from Afghanistan. Oh, what a shame about the people trapped there. They don't want to talk about 20 years of farce and people dying for nothing, and basically enabling the Taliban. Like, all the reasons we had to be there, well, we just made those situations worse with our intervention. And one more aside on that, I've never was a Hillary hater. You know, I mean, I actually had I know a lot about her early career that I respect, you know, that I should say I respected. You know, she started out as, you know, idealistic advocate for children's rights, and was on the right side of civil rights, you know, things that Democrats like to be proud of. And she was Secretary of State through part of that fiasco. And it's like, so I'm not one of those people that always thought she was the Wicked Witch or something. But I'm looking at Afghanistan now, and I'm just like, wow. You know, it's just like the Greens were calling it right all along about foreign policy and the military-industrial complex. And I should have known better. I mean, I'm the son of a Vietnam veteran, and I'm very well acquainted with it. And I knew that even whatever good reasons we had to get involved with Iraq, none of the ones that we used as justifications, mind you, more like we asked the Shia, you know, our former President Bush told the Shia to rise up against Saddam and then, you know, let them get gassed and mowed down. So you say, well, you can say there was a makeup call we needed to do there. You know, those people that were massacred, you know, by a dictator that we helped install. You could make an argument that we had a moral obligation to unseat that dictator because we put him in and he was a butcher. But I still came out against the war because I was just like, oh, I just know they're going to screw this up. I just knew the Bush cabal was just going to be exactly what it was. You know, nothing surprised me there. What surprised me is that the Democratic Party turned out to be every bit as bad in Afghanistan. That is a rude awakening for me. And I'm not one of these people that have always hated the Democratic Party. You know, I'm a guy that loved the Democratic Party. I mean, it's the party of Shirley Chisholm. Bobby Kennedy's name was sacred in my house growing up. My dad, even though he was very conservative, quoted him all the freaking time. I mean, my mom was a McGovern Democrat. You know, it was like in my DNA, you know, to be a loyal, proud Democrat. And it's like, I cannot do that right now. And you can, oh, but the Republicans. No, it's like, no, you cannot excuse what's going on with ETO in Lake County on a local level, and there's no excuse for what happened in Afghanistan. That is a bloody mess. We should all be ashamed of ourselves.
I don't know of any war, at least within the last 100 and plus 21 years, that has ever gone well and ended well.
I can name a couple.
Go ahead.
Part of, there must be a little bit of loyal Democrat DNA still in me somewhere. I mean, I thought when Clinton sent troops into Haiti, there were thugs with machetes chopping up people trying to vote. And I thought, send a few Marines in there. Let's straighten that out quick. I'm an ex-Marine. I'm like, yeah, guys with machetes trying to chop up voters, Marine Corps can handle that. And they did.
Okay, well, a small military action is different than a war.
Kosovo. There was a genocide going on. I wasn't sure about getting in. I was like, oh no, some damn fool thing in the Balkans that could start a world war. I was a little nervous about it, but it worked out apparently. We stopped the killing. I mean,
did we have UN support for both of those? Because I think that's going to be the varying factors. When obviously the UN is not behind us, yet we have veto power for some reason. I think that's when the U.S. needs to, well, one, it needs to be a vote in Congress, but then two, we need to second guess, like, oh, we're the only ones that are looking to get into this. There's plenty of other reputable nations in the UN. Why are we going into this and no one else is? I think that was our major pitfall in the last two major.
With Iraq and Afghanistan, France wouldn't do it. England did a little bit, I think, but the bigger countries wouldn't do it. We had Estonia.
It's clear, though, to me, very clear, that if we want to preserve our republic, we have to fix things. We need to focus on what's wrong here. If we want to make a better world, we could start by leading by example. We could start by ending the class war. We could stop. We could start having some racial reconciliation. We could start having. I would like to have some truth and reconciliation. We need to be the United States again, and part of that is going to be respecting each other, including each other, and empowering each other. Unfortunately, we have a political establishment right now that absolutely does not want to share power with the American people. And what we have, we had a revolution about taxation without representation. These corporate stooges, sorry, that may be a little too inflammatory. I don't want to be so respected. I don't want to disrespect these people I might be serving within the Congress, but like I said, I'm all for forgiveness and let's start over, but they're not representing working people.
Right.
And it's clear. And any Republicans feel the same way. Because I'm on the doors, because I'm organizing, because I'm talking to Republicans, independents, and Democrats. Who the heck thinks, and it seems like, the Democrats who like Brad Schneider are, they're the affluent Democrats, and this is a very affluent district, and you go to a Democratic Party function and you're with a lot of upper middle class people, and I got to tell you, as a working class guy, even with all the love and loyalty I had in my heart for my party, I felt pretty alienated a lot being around people with their and they're they don't even know how and I own my class prejudice. I have some class prejudice, but I own it, and I still remember that rich people are people too. When I met JB, I was like, I got along with him. I wasn't like you lousy billionaire capitalist pig. I wasn't my attitude about but I wonder though, does a guy like that really get how regular people are suffering? Is he really waking up every day wondering about this corrupt system is really screwing over the American people, the people in my state, I mean, I don't know how much. Maybe he cares, but he's got good intentions, but but he doesn't have the experience, and he's inside the bubble with all these clueless hacks. I'm sorry, I'm being a little too raw right now, but
no, I don't apologize with us.
I'm not being
sure
a congressional candidate. I'm being guy in a soapbox right now.
That's
So
right.
if I could direct that
But,
soapbox speech, I
no,
want to
it's just-
hear.
but I wonder, I mean, just like they just don't get it. They
Right.
just don't get it. And they haven't worked in the neighborhoods I've worked in. They don't talk to the people I've talked to, and they don't care. They don't care. If they cared, they would do something different. You know, it seems they're satisfied with performative solutions like this Stop ETO legislation, which is a sham. You know, and I just thought, boy, if you could go to bed at night thinking, what a great job we did, you know, like just like Bush, mission accomplished. And really,
Calvin.
Yeah, I want to ask, how do we give more power to the people? And I'm thinking of the working class. I'm thinking, how do we give, so many people that are in desperation mode nowadays? How do we give them more power in terms of? I'm looking at labor organizing. I'm looking at unionizing. We see across the country there's a lot of union activity going on, whether it's new union shops trying to unionize or if it's shops going on strike. There was Striketober, that phenomenon this last month, and it's some of those strikes are still ongoing, like John Deere, to the best of my knowledge. How do we give more power to the working class? How do we improve labor conditions and the majority of people's waking lives?
Now I'm going to switch back in the congressional candidate politician mode. You opened the door for me.
Let's
do
do it.
that by electing a working class guy who's devoted his life to service, a guy who's a union brother, who understands. Of course, all of us seem to claim that, but I worked at an emergency shelter. I've worked case manager for independent developmentally disabled adults. I'll say even driving a cab and doing point of sale service industry work makes me more qualified than Brad, as far as like knowing how to serve people, not to serve over them, but to represent for them. Not the money, not listening to the money, not just serving the money. Money speaks for money, but who's going to speak for the skin and the bone? I'm going to grab that, paraphrase Billy Bragg right there. Why not? Why not? Why not elect more people from the working class? Why not? Not saying that we should never elect, that the wealthy should be excluded from government. I would, there's other comrades that'll say that, but I would say, well, we need more working class representation, more people, and not just like, the window dressing, not tokens.
Would you join? Would you join picket lines and join unionization rallies?
I have joined picket lines, and
nice.
I got to tell you that the last 4 strikes I got involved in had one thing in common. The bosses tried to break it by withholding their health care, because our healthcare system, you're tied to the plantation with your company provided health care.
Yeah.
Means you can't go start a business, you can't go on strike without risking your health care. Your boss controls your health care. He controls what health care you have. So I'm going to say, if you're a Democrat or a Republican and you want to say you're pro-labor, if you don't have a national health care system that allows workers to go on strike without losing their health care, you're not pro-labor, you're a phony. So if you're pro-labor, like I am, I'm a union brother, ATU Local 1733, and I've been in solidarity with other workers standing up for their working conditions, because we're getting pennies on the dollar. They're taking up all our time. They got us working our brains out. Our days are long. And who are we supporting? We're supporting people that aren't doing the work. People always said, oh, that's what the socialists want. They want to pay a bunch of people to not work. It's like that. You got us confused with these other guys, the ones that are running things now. They're the ones that are paying people who don't work.
Right.
And your workers should have a right to strike. You have a right to stand up for themselves. They have a right to organize, because that's all we have. Yeah, they've got the billions, and all we have is our ability to overcome our differences and to stand together in solidarity. And that's That's the formula for my campaign. If I win, it's because I succeed as an organizer and bringing people together. I'm going to need Republicans, and I'm going to have to go to them hat in hand and say, I used to bash on you like I was a partisan attack dog, and I'm like, but now I need you and you need me, and we got to pull together, and we need independents, and we need Democrats, and we need the Greens and the progressives and the libertarians to pull together, or we're going to lose the whole thing. And we're going to lose our democracy. We're going to lose I should say, we're going to lose our chance for democracy, because we have a republic, but we're going to lose the opportunity to make it more democratic and more just. Right. We're going to lose our planet because we're going to fry ourselves right off the surface with these phony solutions, the climate emergency. I would say one thing I'm going to do, definitely we got to declare a climate emergency. And that means having real science-backed remedies, not phony performative remedies like they did with the ETO legislation, and declare mission accomplished when they have not done jack.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I wanted to say last little labor question is what are your thoughts on worker cooperatives, on policies?
Excellent
like
ideas. Excellent.
Yeah. Do you like the policy of right of first refusal? So if the owner wants to retire and wants to sell the business, they have to offer the business to the workers first. There has to be a legitimate offer given to them, and the workers can come up with a financing deal with maybe local banks and what are those called?
Unions.
Credit unions. Thank you. In order to purchase the business. What do you think of policies like that?
I like them. I mean, just hearing it for sort of it appeals to me, but I think we're going to really need to stay focused on the money out of politics, the healthcare, and the climate. That's a lot for people to digest, and there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of disinformation. So if we're like the Sanders campaign and we start trying to talk about every progressive issue out there, we're never going to find a common area to bring people together. Because like I said, I need Republicans and independents and libertarians. So, I mean, I am an open socialist. I'm a democratic socialist. I've been carrying the card since 1985. I'm endorsed by the West Suburban Democratic Socialists of America, and I'm proud of that. But I'm recognizing that as a representative in this district and as a candidate in this district, I need to bring together a lot of people who are not democratic socialists, and I need to respect people who have different views from me. At least I should say, except for the people who want to bankrupt us and kill us.
Right.
We can just agree on let's stop bankrupting and killing ourselves, supporting these people who are just lying to us, and let's come up with something better, and we could talk about these other things, rather than saying progressive policy A through Z. I might like it, but I also need my constituents to support it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm just going to sit around and get polling data. What do the constituents want? And I'm going to just mold myself and bend over backwards to fit this polling data. And then, whoops, they changed their mind. Now I'm like, I got to reshape myself all of a sudden. Right. I mean, I have certain core principles. Obviously, in simple working class and conservative terms, an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. You're concerned about people who don't want to work for a living. How about making sure they get an honest day's pay for a living? Because that's one of the most broken things in this country. And I know that I can get conservatives to agree with me on that an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, which also, by the way, segues into national health care, because workers need to be able to stand up to their boss without saying, oh, guess what? Joe doesn't get his chemotherapy this week because the workers got out of line. Oh, you bad workers killed your coworker because you got uppity.
Right. It should have never been tied to employment in the first place.
Oh, well, yeah, it's like there's all this, and you see the hype in the corporate media. It's like I don't really pay a lot of attention to it, but you hear it. I got not even watching this stuff. It's so loud, and people parrot it. You can tell what's going on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. You don't ever have to watch it. You'll run into someone who's just like repeating this nonsense they get fed, and it is nonsense, and it's the so-called left. The Democratic Party is not the left, ladies and gentlemen. They are corporate conservatives. They're social liberals, maybe sometimes.
Maybe some.
Yeah, some.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just they're racists that won't even acknowledge that racism is a problem. They don't even acknowledge their own racism while pointing the finger at their Republican neighbors, saying, "Those racist Republicans." It's like, look in the mirror, pal.
Right.
You're born
David, I want to
into
give you the floor for a question, but I want to highlight real quick. Adam, you've brought up corporate media a couple of times, and previous on the show, I've mentioned that which companies are owned by which. I've got a list here I just want to read out real quick. So Comcast owns MSNBC, AT&T Time Warner owns CNN, Disney owns ABC News, Comcast owns NBC News as well, Amazon owns the Washington Post. I view Fox as like the giant Murdoch Corp. It's its own corporation, and then there's local Sinclair that's buying up and airing like almost verbatim skits for all local news that they've bought up throughout the country. So I just wanted to highlight like how true that is. There really is corporate media, corporate owned news, and it needs to be taken with a huge grain of salt. And then hopefully you're finding other news sources to at least complement it, because this is rough. This is rough sourcing. This is very corporate friendly by the way they hire and everything.
Two other quick points on that corporate media thing. One is, and I think people don't understand this, that they get a lot of revenue from folksy insurance ads, Caramel, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, that's a lot of money. They're getting paid to run stupid ads for a product that you really don't have any choice. Anyway, your employer picks it, but they spend that ad money, and that is part of why you don't hear the truth about healthcare reform options. It's also why a lot of politicians, even if they believe in Medicare for all, they're like, I can't run against the noise machine of big money. I have to try to find a way to do what good I can do while not taking on the big money head on. And then the other factor is defense industry money, the military industrial complex. So corporate, NBC used to be owned by General Electric, used to be in that mix. I don't know if they still are, but General Electric, defense contractor, and a lot of the money in the economy actually does come from the military industrial complex. And then there's the insurance thing, and we need to diversify people. The way we invest public money in the public good. Well, first of all, it needs to be for the general welfare, not the narrow special interests. But unfortunately, narrow special interests are controlling our government, and they are the narrow government by the narrow self-interest for the narrow self-interest. And if you think your government is incompetent, let me tell you, it works just fine for the people who own it.
That is true. So really, we got about 6.5 minutes left here. How would you approach the whole military budget? It's one of the biggest parts of the pie chart of our budget, and it's like people think it's completely bloated.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, we just
you could find 10% waste without even changing
blinking.
Cutting waste, you could cut 10%. I'm absolutely disgusted that Brad skipped out on the vote for cutting the defense budget by 10%. I don't know, was he worried that I was going to call him out on it? But I already know Brad's views on that, because I talked to him about cutting the defense budget one time, and he just turned and walked away from me when I was running for Lake County Clerk in 2018. That was kind of the beginning of our falling out. Should have probably disowned him there, but I was like, okay, he has his opinion, I have mine. Robin Kelly, our new Democratic Party chair, our revolution was very proud that Peter Jenko was able to cast one of the votes to get her in, and Peter's a good guy, Medicare for all guy, but now Robin Kelly flip-flopped on cutting the defense budget, so she voted for cutting it last time, but now that she's a Democratic Party chair, she's against cutting the budget. And to me, when you talk about all the things we need, all the needs of the people, and you say, well, we just can't find 10% to cut out of the military budget. They're spending money in the military budget that the military doesn't even ask for. They're building obsolete gear that the Air Force doesn't even want because politics. Widget factory in that district. It's all just like passing money around and make work. And meanwhile, think about that next time you go to the pharmacy. If you're one of the 20% of the people under the poverty line from your out-of-pocket medical expenses, just remember, when Brad said, how are we going to pay for it? Helping you out more or capping that. Like, Bernie said 200, and even that's unnecessary. You shouldn't have to pay for your pharma. Taxpayers, that's the common defense. That's gonna protect American lives more than nuclear weapons ever will. Being the world's largest suicide bomber does not help us or anyone. But medicine, school books, beds, hospitals, these are things that can help us, and we need to reallocate. And the federal government can speak these things into the pay-fors are a myth. The government can allocate this just like when they had a war in Iraq. They started a freaking war and they cut taxes. They bailed out the freaking banks over and over again. They let untold amounts of money get sucked into people's pockets as part of a boondoggle and cut taxes. Don't talk to me about pay-fors. The government can speak things into. That's one of the reasons I'm seeking federal office, not local, because only the federal government has that power to just speak it into existence. And if you want to have pay-fors, you want to play the mythos that we have to find a way to pay for it. Cut waste in the military. Cut all these weapons that we don't need, that don't protect us. We spent untold wealth in the Reagan years building up our military, and then what happened? We got brought to our knees by a dozen jerk-offs with box cutters. Okay, that's what your defense budget is at work. And then we created the
TSA. Yeah,
we created this vast national security state apparatus under George W. Bush, and Muhammad Atta had his visa renewed by the United States government after he was dead from flying an airplane into the World Trade Center. Your tax money at work, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I think with Afghanistan and everything else, it's time for massive reform. So I think we got to build up the Green Party.
And I need to look into what happened in the Glasgow meeting here, because I know that one thing that kept us from joining the Kyoto Protocol back in the 90s was that Clinton refused to allow the American military's contribution to polluting the earth be a part of the actual emissions budget that America was being tallied as having. The fact of the matter is that the American military is the number one single entity polluter in the entire world. You can put dozens upon dozens of other countries' militaries together, and then maybe our military would equal the amount of pollution that they contribute. With all the aircraft carriers and the battleships and the tanks and the trucks and everything else, and the bomb tests and the nuclear tests, the American military absolutely devastates this planet, and it's disgusting. And so that's something.
Uranium depleted shells in Iraq. That's another thing that hit me hard. That was brutal. I have some scientific studies on that. We're not even measuring the long-term effects there from that.
Yeah, sure. The stuff we leave behind and all, who gets their hands on it. We have less than a minute left. Calvin, any final questions?
No final questions. I just think this is great. I think you're a candidate that stands for the working class, helps out labor, and then focuses on the issues that are going to most bring us together. I think the people in the polling that I've seen are majority for Medicare for all. So I think that's excellent that we're pushing for that. And that's going to set a lot of people free in labor so that they can do strikes or they can give notice to their bosses that there's unsafe conditions or something, and not fear losing their health insurance and necessary care. I think this is a great path forward, and I'm excited to see what your campaign brings.
Yeah.
Well, in closing, the campaign is just in the beginning stages of being organized. Sure. Obviously, I'm not a candidate that's worked out his talking points and has the canned responses of a professional candidate on the campaign trail, and that's not above me. At some point, I'm gonna need to be a more disciplined candidate with a more disciplined, tighter message. This is, you want to get to know me. This is just me and this is the guy that my friends know, the too much coffee guy, just, work a 12-hour day and then get on the podcast and just go off the chain. But at least, what you're getting is not from some military funded think tank. It's from my heart. It's what's off the top of my head right now. And I know that when I work, especially in certain areas, it's more important to people that you're real with them than polished.
Absolutely, 100%.
They don't want you to be a polished organizer. They want to know who they're talking to.
That's good. It's refreshing to hear, for sure. All right, we're at the end of the show, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Illinois Green Party series with our host, Adam Broad, the Green Party candidate for District 10 for federal Congress. That's very exciting. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. And the closer we get to the election next year, let's have you back on for sure.
That'd be an honor. Let's see the difference between candidate at the beginning of the
actually that'd be a cool sociological measure.
Manager, like punching him in the back of the head.
One for the poli-sci textbooks. The evolution of a candidate, the sequel, that kind of thing. All right, Calvin. See you next time, everybody. Thanks again. Until next time, be good, be green.